Hey everyone, Sean here, host of the AxPx podcast. I was editing tonight's podcast I was going to be posting that we had recorded over the weekend, but I felt I needed to kind of, mention the events that happened today, April 15th, 2013, at the Boston Marathon. And I was at lunch today and just flipped on the radio briefly. Funny thing is, I normally don't listen to the radio, and heard a special report that a bomb or whatever explosion had happened at the Boston Marathon at the finish line. So I sat there and just sat there and listened to everything unfold. And of course, it's audio, and no one had any information. It was all sketchy and speculative at best. But so I've been pretty much obsessed with that all day, and pretty upset, when you hear about things like this that happen, and innocent people dying, and just violence happening at a public event. The Boston Marathon. I mean, things have happened in movie theaters, and you just think of places that you go to, public places, with your family, like family events, and the last thing on your mind is this kind of thing happening. So it's been on my mind all day, and in today's podcast we do discuss a little bit about kind of depression and frustrations and things like that. And although the conversation is kind of light, I just wanted to take the time and personally just to explain, where I'm at, and it's things like this that happen that kind of spiral me into kind of a more of a depressed state. And the world we live in is just, there's a lot of light at times, but there's a lot of darkness and despair, and for someone like me, kind of on this faith journey, searching for truth, it can be frustrating. The answers aren't there, and it just makes the search for answers even harder. But there is some light in the darkness, though, and I wanted to mention the first responders and the police, the firefighters, the emergency response people, even just civilians, people just there rushing. The explosion happened, and people were rushing to the explosion to help people out. And I think at times like these, even though there's a lot of despair and tragedy, that glimmer of hope, that of humanity, that people are willing to rush into danger to help others, I think is something that people like me, who can kind of focus on all the negative in an event like this, it's just something that a person like myself can focus on and kind of get me through, dealing with my feelings of anger and you get on Facebook right after a tragedy like this, and people are posting things like, only Jesus matters, and and pray for Boston. And my cynical, attitude is like, why pray now? What's that going to solve? Maybe there was not enough people praying before, So I get frustrated, reading all the aftermath stuff. And then of course, you almost just have to turn off social media, because people can be monsters, jokes and things like that. So I've been off social media most of the day, as much as I can. So anyway, I don't know where I'm going with all this, but just wanted to, if any of you are listening and are in the Boston area, just know that there's a lot of, the whole country basically, our hearts are bleeding for those affected in today's events, and mourning, with whenever things like this happen, when innocent life is lost, it's it affects me pretty deeply. So I just want to let all of you know, these events are on my heart, and my thoughts my thoughts are with all those who have been affected, and I don't know, it's a tough thing. So anyway, on to today's podcast. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I think always trying to focus on the positive in a negative event is, can help turn a person like me's, our emotions around, and focusing on the positive, I think, is the best thing to do in this type of scenario. So anyway, thanks everyone for listening, and enjoy today's podcast. The AxPx podcast is brought to you by Charming Beard Coffee. Go to charmingbeard.com and enter in the code AxPx when you buy a bag of their single roasted coffees and get 10% off of your order. Charming Beard Coffee, quality small batch single origin coffee for the discerning coffee drinker. Beard not necessarily required.
Don't cry. You can rely on me, honey.
Welcome everyone to episode 22 of the AxPx podcast. I'm your host, Sean DeReger. With me today is Joey Avalos.
Am I?
That's
a good question. Yes.
Why are we here? And also with us is Rob Davis. And what's up, Rob?
Hello.
We had this amazing, epic, philosophical discussion that we recorded 3 weeks ago, something like that. And it's probably the best podcast we've ever done. However, my hard drive failed. It seems like as we were wrapping up the conversation. So that has been lost to hard drive Sheol or purgatory. Actually, not even purgatory because I can't even bring it back.
It doesn't have a choice in the matter now. There's no choice left.
There was this file there sitting there, and I spent about 2 days trying to resurrect it. And it was funny because it was right around Easter, you know.
You should have put it in a tomb.
It's like, if I can't even resurrect a file, how can a man? I'm not even going to go into this. So, anyway, and then of course my wife and I got on a discussion on if Jesus actually, was resurrected, and it was just it was a weird weekend.
Nice.
So, after kind of a couple weeks break and everything, and kind of an impromptu podcast last week, I was like, we got to get Rob back on, and it'd be nice to cover some things that we've covered, and I think we're gonna go in more of a different direction as well. So, but first, Joey, you were at a atheist convention. What was the name of the convention?
Well, it's not really an atheist convention.
Okay.
I kind of just titled that because it was brought to you by Lawrence Krauss. He's a theoretical physicist at ASU, and he had a science weekend here at ASU at the Arizona State University, the Gamage Theater, and the first night he had a screening of his new movie with Richard Dawkins, and it's called The Unbelievers. I can't really talk about it too much because it was a screener, and it's not coming out until I think in May or something like that.
Are you're not under embargo though?
No, but they kind of asked us. They were pretty stingent about everything, man.
Hey, dude, you did not sign a contract, so I doubt there's any spoilers. They're already atheists,
right? This is spoiler. It's really about a film crew just followed around Richard Dawkins and Lawrence Krauss for about a year or a couple months, I can't remember, but just filming them because they wanted to treat it like they were rock stars. You know how you do a documentary on a band, right, and you travel with them, and you see them backstage and when they perform. Well, they went around with Lawrence Krauss and Richard Dawkins and just filmed them doing their thing. And the thing is they had some other celebrities a part of it, like Ricky Gervais, and Cameron Diaz actually showed up to the event that night too, which was kind of puzzling. I don't know why she was there. I don't know, it's star power, I guess, but probably. She kind of, you got on this panel of all these scientists, and you got Cameron Diaz, so it was like, she's like, I love science, and that's all she kept on saying. So, but anyways. Exactly, and that's what they kind of treat her as. But anyways, so that night, it was hosted by Richard Dawkins. He was there, and Lawrence Krauss, and they showed us their new movie called The Unbelievers. And afterwards, they had a Q&A session, and they talked about, what do you think about the movie and everything. And it was, what I found puzzling is that Lawrence Krauss was like, I don't want people just to think that this is a propaganda film for atheism. And then I'm like sitting there, I'm like, they want it to be like to promote science. And I'm like, well, that's great, but then don't make the cover is Richard Dawkins and Lawrence Krauss in the shadow of a cross, and it's called Unbelievers. That doesn't make any sense to me. Where's his propaganda, man?
Yeah.
But it was a good film. I thought it was really well put together. The cinematography was beautiful. I mean, they travel them to all over the world, Australia and Europe and whatnot. So, yeah, look forward to that, I guess, in May, I think. And I also saw our friend Seth Andrews made a cameo in it briefly.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to tell him. I go, hey man, I saw you last night in the new Lawrence and Dawkins film, so he's pretty excited about that.
That's cool. He's getting out there.
Yeah, man, making
Becoming
moves.
a star.
Yep, an atheist star. Watch out.
That's what we should do, Joey. We should just say we're atheists now, and we'll ride the bandwagon of this newfound, like, all this new fame, I guess. I don't know. There's another kind of atheist film coming out that Seth Andrews posted about, and I can't find the name of it, but it's definitely, like propaganda. It's definitely kind of building them up. I mean, there's a lot of Christian propaganda out there too, but this is kind of like the new atheism kind of propaganda films. And of course, they don't like the word propaganda, but they're designed to help them feel a little more validated in society, just because they are kind of, the mainstream, society. The way that the U.S. is, it's if you say you're an atheist, it definitely has a some underlying negativity to that term. So
yeah, and the reason why I called it like an atheist convention, actually I called it an atheist church, because you go to some churches, when you walk into the church, you got the music, the mood music going on. Everyone's just talking among themselves. Well, that was like that, but it was completely just filled with atheists. They had their God-hating shirts on and just funny shirts and whatnot. But they had this music. They had Coldplay playing in the background. The lights were dimmed, and everyone's like. And then when Lawrence Krauss came out, the preacher, everyone starts clapping, and then they go into a little worship service with Richard Dawkins comes out, and it was just interesting, man, because you're just surrounded all these things, all these people that are just like-minded, but it's totally opposite from the world that you and I came from,
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm used to that kind of stuff. Like before, like my main experience with it was with Christian bands, and on the tour and everything. And you have the mood music going, some up and coming Christian band or whatever, and the lights are dim and all the kids middle in it, So
yep, exactly. It had that same sense, like you're at church.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's all about community, and these are a bunch of like-minded people coming together, in their community, So that's really all church really is you look at it as just, like-minded people coming together.
Well,
yeah, and then we have us who just have no idea.
Exactly. Well, the second night it was kind of good because it was called The Storytelling of Science, and they actually brought out Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye the Science Guy and a bunch of other great scientists, and it was entertaining, and it was all about science and about storytelling, and I really enjoyed that night. Okay. That was one of the best events I've been to in a long time.
Cool. And where was that at?
The Gamage Auditorium or Theater. I think it's a beautiful theater in Arizona at the Arizona State University.
Okay. Because I know that I think that same weekend the American Atheist Convention was going on in, I think, Texas.
Yeah, Austin, Texas.
Texas. Yeah. So.
Well, we had 3,000 people at our event. I think they only had like 1,200. So.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. All right. So, would you recommend people, even if? Whoa, I'm buzzing. Sorry. That was weird. I heard a big old buzz in my headphones. I don't know if you guys heard that.
I heard that.
Don't touch the computer. Jeez.
So what was your question?
I totally forget. I don't know.
Oh, you're asking if I'd probably recommend it?
Oh, yeah. These types of events, like, would you recommend anyone to go? Did you feel, since you're not like, we're kind of all on the fringe, right? And we'll get into that in a little bit, but did you feel like an outsider? Did you feel kind of welcome? Like, what was your sense of being there, especially on the night of the Unbeliever screening?
Well, I think you do feel accepted because I think you already paid the ticket. You're there, and you probably like-minded. People assume that you're like-minded individuals, right, anyways. So it's like if you went to church, no one's going to go like, "Man, that dude looks like an atheist,"
right?
Or like, "What's wrong with him?" Let's go talk to him. Well, some churches might think that.
Well, if you're wearing all black and have a ponytail,
yeah, exactly, and say, "I I hate God shirts or something. Yeah, maybe that might do it. But yeah, you brought up the ponytail. Yeah, there was a lot of ponytails there, man.
Nice.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah, I recommend even the film. I mean, actually, the film directors, they're actually two young dudes, and like their family are like pretty predominant Christians. Like,
Okay.
so they showed it to them, and they said they thought their Christian friends should watch it.
Did you feel like it was well represented, like kind of both sides, or kind of objective, or did it feel forced in any way?
No, it's the same old, really attacking fundamentalism, you
Right.
know, and so I can get behind that
Yeah,
because
totally.
it's only one degree of what you see in the culture we live in, the fundamentalism, and there, it's the same old thing. I just remember there was a couple funny scenes. I mean, they triggered what's it called? They were trying to go after, like, Richard Dawkins would be on a phone call, and you're sitting there, and it's just dead silence for a while, and you're like, what is this? And then it goes off to the screen to something else, and then it goes back to him again, and it's dead silence.
Huh.
And you're like, okay, this is awkward editing. What's going on? And then finally, the punchline, he's like, yes, I think it's child abuse, and he's like talking to some Christian pastor or something about indoctrination or something.
Oh, okay.
So they had some funny moments in that, but yeah, overall, I thought it was educational, I guess.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I'm looking forward to checking that out. Well, like I said, we have Rob Davis on the show, and he's just been kicking back, chuckling in the background. Rob, I wanted to kind of turn it over to you a little bit, and the reason why we initially had you on the show is because you had wrote an article on your blog, IamRobDavis.wordpress.com.
It might have been the Who is Rob Davis.
Who is Rob Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah. That you were getting tired of atheism, and you were getting more involved in kind of like an emergent type thing. Like, can you just give us a background kind of leading up to that moment of your relationship with Christianity and things, kind of your journey into, I guess, unbelief, or, I guess we can start with what kind of church you were raised in and stuff like that.
Yeah. Try to compress all of that.
Yeah, no worries.
So, yeah, raised in Pentecostal charismatic churches since, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years old. Got involved in youth leadership around high school and kind of kept doing that until probably a couple of years after I graduated high school, became like an assistant youth pastor. Eventually, I led some small Bible studies in my house. I became a worship leader. Eventually got ordained in a kind of progressive, emergent type church in Oklahoma City. So I was an elder / pastor at that church for a little while, and then got offered a job out where we live now, which is Raleigh, North Carolina, in 2007, and moved out here so that I could work on staff at this kind of a bigger, young, urban, neo-reformed church. Mm-hmm. Pretty well connected to, Driscoll and a lot of those guys, John Piper and that whole world. And so I was on staff for 2.5 years before I quit. But I think my trajectory of maybe skepticism mm-hmm. had probably started much earlier, and I feel like I spent, maybe I could trace it back to when I realized that the charismatic and Pentecostal churches that I grew up in were just really weird. And, I never had these experiences that everyone in that world thought were essential to being a Christian. Was, you're going to speak in tongues, and you're going to have these moments, and you're going to you're just going to know, capitalized KNOW. You're going to know that God is in you and God is among us. And so none of that ever really happened for me, but I grew up in it. And I think at that point was when I really started kind of taking ownership. And I was probably like, I don't know, 21, 22 at the time. So I started taking ownership of my spirituality. That's when I started reading books and I started really questioning a lot of stuff. And so I feel like, it's been probably a 10, 11-year process of questioning, doubting, re-examining things, trying to be honest with myself and with everyone else. And so that kind of leads to when I quit working for the Neo-Reformed Church in 2010, so over 3 years ago, I, in conjunction with, I think, what I see now as like some pretty severe symptoms of like PTSD and depression and anxiety and, leaning toward some suicidal thoughts of, I just, I'm walking away from this world and I don't know what to do. I don't have a degree. I don't have a job career path set up for myself, which I think a lot of people that go down that path go through the same kind of thing when they finally walk away.
Right.
It's
because your job was ministry, right? I mean, that was like the path you went into.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, yeah.
So once that's gone, you're like, well, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. And so all of that together with doubting and questioning, and then it was just like, I don't think I buy into any of this stuff. So I think at that point I was like, okay, I'm an atheist, and the loudest voices that I could find to support my frustration and bitterness and confusion were the new atheists. So guys like Dawkins, and I really wasn't familiar with Lawrence Krauss until more recently, but Hitchens, Harris, all those guys, and I think that kind of angry atheism didn't really last very long because it's not really my. I think so much of that is personality, and it's like, Anyway, so it didn't last very long.
Yeah. Well, it almost seems.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but it almost seems like you're drawn to that sort of person for a while, like just in my own experience, because they are the ones voicing the frustration that you've been dealing with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what do you do once you move past that frustration? They seem kind of stuck in that perpetual battle against fundamentalism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. So
no.
So moving on from there, was that what kind of sparked your blog post that you're quitting atheism? That's what the blog post was?
Yeah, and it's in conjunction with when I first started going to therapy, which was really good. I really think it literally changed my life. It helped me more than anything else that I've done. So when I started going into therapy, it was when I was kind of putting behind the new atheism thing, but I also came across some of these more radical, progressive Christian thinkers like John Caputo and Pete Rollins. And they're, in any classical sense, they're atheists, but they're trying to redefine Christianity based on their philosophical ideas. So that was really attractive to me for a long time, at least the past, year and a half, maybe even longer. of really trying to understand what those guys were doing. But I think even since our last interview that didn't work out, I think I don't know. I don't know that I can even explain or communicate where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
But like, it kind of feels like even those guys and even like the most far left out there guys, like a guy like Tony Jones or Jay Baker, who these guys I have a huge amount of respect for, but it's still, to me, it feels like a extended exercise in justifying something,
right?
Rather than, let's get to not the capital T truth, but let's just get to the best knowledge that we have about the world. It seems like their pursuit isn't that. It's, I have this background and I want to justify it in some way. So I'm going to find people that agree with me to support what I already think.
Right. And sell some books.
Exactly. And they would probably admit that too. And that's great. But I think maybe where I'm at is me just going, okay, that makes sense. I get it. But what do I want to spend my time doing? And
do you? Here's kind of the part of the direction I kind of wanted to go with today's show. Do you feel like this kind of perpetual skepticism and figuring things out, and do you feel like that could be kind of a cause of stress and depression, like in your personal life? Because I know it does me.
Yeah, and there recently, like, I've come across some studies of people that actually prove that idea that, the unexamined life is not worth living, but the examined life is going to be a lot more difficult. Like, it's just like it's going to cause you, and it's going to cause you problems, it's going to cause your relationships problems, because you can't shut it off.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's totally true in my life. And it sounds like it's true in yours.
Well, with me, I can expand a little bit. Just the past couple weeks at work have been kind of the most busy I think I've ever been in the past 5 years, which is a good thing because I enjoy being busy. And which is funny because I was in an interview with one of my bosses, and I said that, and he kind of was, thought that he probably thought that I was full of shit.
You're brown nosing.
But I'm not, because my personality is, the more that I am into, the more that's going on in my day, especially at work, the quicker my day, I get through with my day, and I just enjoy it. Like, the moment that I'm kind of still and quiet and bored, that's when I start thinking about all the bigger questions, you know what I mean?
Right.
And all that starts perpetuating in my head, and so this 2 weeks, it's been insanely stressful as far as work goes, but I haven't even thought about reading anything, anyone, any blogs, any books that I've been trying to get through, any of the podcasts and lectures that I'm kind of, the past 2 years still trying to get through to the end of these, you know what I mean? I found that just working cleared all that out of my head, and it was almost like I had a fresh perspective. Like, I think yesterday was the first day that I actually felt focused on just enjoying my kids for the first time in a long time. So I'm kind of, going through my head. I'm like, well, is this, yes, I'm skeptic. I'm a skeptic. I'm skeptical about things, but does this constant, attempt to figure things out and figure other people out and their theology and their philosophies, is that necessarily really healthy, So it's just kind of an interesting thing that's come up the past couple of weeks with me, and I'm not, I don't want to abandon searching into things, but I think that there's a balance that is healthier. Yeah. But it's kind of a catch-22, because you have personal relationships, like my relationship with my wife. when we got married, we were both very much on the same page with our faith, with religion. And now we're both kind of splintered away and we're not on the same page. So there's kind of this, I want to rush to get to some point, to some end point, so her and I can deal with that, and then move on with our marriage, and just. But I think that my constant skepticism and and all the things that I'm reading, it does worry her, and I think it does to an extent, stress her out a little bit, and she she worries about me. So, but so it's like so it's just interesting, and then that there are times, and Joey, you can fill in any time with. I'm not sure how much you want to dive into, but there's times where I'm like, what, maybe I do need to go to therapy to talk all this stuff out. My relationship with my parents, I need to talk to somebody about my relationship with, just people around me, my constant skepticism, whereas this podcast has been somewhat therapeutic. There's this times where I'm like, I have so much built up that maybe I need to go get it out somewhere. So it's just been interesting, and there's times where I'm like, is this all even worth it? It's sometimes I wish I could flip a switch and just go back to being, not knowing the things I know, and not having these questions, just go back and being just, ignorance is bliss, right? Give me the, what is it, the red pill or the blue pill, whatever. I want to eat a steak, Yeah. Put me back in the Matrix. So I know I'm rambling. Joey, do you, have you been down this road a little bit, or what's been your kind of experience with, this constant, we're all kind of in this same page, the three of us, where we're not committing, you know what I mean? But we're all on this journey.
No, and I think that's the one thing. You mentioned, Rob, you mentioned Peter Rollins, and I've actually been reading his new book, Idolatry of God, I think it's called. And there was something profound in it that I really enjoy, that really connected with me right now, is that getting rid of certainty. Getting rid of all that stuff, being so certain about something, it's refreshing to hear someone say something like that, because I feel like everything around us, people around us, doesn't matter. I mean, you got so many different views of theology and belief systems and worldviews that everyone thinks they're right, and of course, no one wants to think they're wrong. And so I find it, Sean and I have these conversations a lot. We have to check ourselves, because we start projecting our own thoughts to someone. We kind of do what he says in his book when we meet someone that has completely different views with us, or we can't understand their views. Like, why do they believe that? Why do they think this way? And we just want to vomit them out, and completely push them out of our lives. And then, but the same thing, really taking a look at what they probably see us and are like, how could they not believe this? What's wrong with them? And they just want to vomit us out of their lives too. And, and just really check ourselves to really be more human. That's what I'm trying to strive to be, not get caught up in so much of the liner notes of everybody's lives. It's more getting to the deep of who we are and in our relationships. Cause I feel like we get so caught up in that stuff, and we start building these walls all around us, that if you don't fit in this box, and you don't completely agree with my ideology or my theology, then you're out of my life. You're not part of this world, And I just feel that's, if we're ultimately trying to search for love and loving and compassion to people, I think the more we put boxes in our lives, the more, that's why I sometimes feel that Christianity does that. And I don't think it's really the message of Christianity. I think Christians in general, end up doing that, and they don't realize that they're doing that, So I think with the journey that I'm on is like Sean, we're skeptics. That's how, I think that's why we get along so well, and why we started this podcast, and he asked me to join the conversation with him, is because that we both care for the truth. We always talk about one of our favorite biblical scholars, Bart Ehrman. He has a blog that I was reading the other day, and he was talking about, he used God as a metaphor now more in his life, since he's more of an agnostic. But he just thought, hey, if God is truth, then I'm going to go wherever the truth leads me, And if I find something that doesn't seem to be adding up or is not the truth, then whatever God is, and if God does exist, then that's not God. And so that's where he kind of strives his life, and I kind of see that too. There's so many people there's so many cooks in the kitchen, and they all want to tell that they're right. And to me, when people do that, I myself put my own walls up, and I just want to just not hear it anymore. So,
well, let's take a musical break here. I think it'll be a good spot to take a break, and we'll come back here. I discovered this acoustic artist this last week that didn't really help with my kind of climbing out of any sort of depression or anything. But it's really good, and I was actually in a record store, and I found one of his records for $3, and I was really surprised. I mean, you take a chance on a newer artist in a discount record bin, but he's on Suburban Home Records is what the record was released on, but I'm going to play his earlier record that I think was out on Asian Man Records. And I heard this song, and I was like, I gotta play this on the show. So, the song is called "Fuck the World." So it's a very uplifting song. But you know what? It songs like this kind of help me, refresh my perspective and be like, does it have to get to that? So, but anyway, it's a good song, and I enjoyed it. So this is Mike Hale. The song is called "Fuck the World" from the album "Broken with No Hope" on the AxPx podcast.
Kill them all, women, children too. Kill them all, let the devil soar through 'em. There isn't much we can do. Reap the world and then search for truth. No, there isn't much honor, no respect in the selfish things I do. Why me? I've been there before, broken with no hope. I might be the poorest of sorts, far less than you hoped for. I said this before. Kill them all. Fuck the world, fuck you. Haven't they taken from me more than rights, and what's worth what's wrath ensue? No surprise, I just don't care, no, I couldn't care less for you or your causes. I killed to defend my rights. Why me? I've been there before, broken with no hope. I might be the poorest of sorts, far less than you hope for. I said this before. Leader of peace for hire, this is my voice, it will not be taken. I, leader of peace for hire, the light we've been led by is clearly mistaken. Cry, fuck the world.
That was Mike Hale with the song Fuck the World. A very uplifting song. I'm sure all of you are, got some tea and are sitting down. It's actually a very pretty song, surprisingly. From his album, Broken with No Hope, which is a very good album. I recommend it. I'm going to play a song from his newer album in a little bit here, but definitely an artist worth checking out, I think, in my opinion. So let's move forward with this conversation here. And, it's kind of, all we're sending out there, like all this constant search for truth, is a big deal, and it can cause a person like me to just say, screw it, I'm done with it, I just don't even want to pursue anything anymore, and just don't want to live and focus on my wife and my kids. So there are different ways to kind of deal with that. And Rob, I have a feeling this is kind of what you were going through when you, because all of a sudden on Facebook and Twitter you said, I'm taking an indefinite hiatus from my blog. What kind of spurred you along to just saying, you know what, I'm not gonna, because you were writing, almost every day, or you were writing quite a bit. What spurred you on to just kind of throw your hands up and just take a break from your daily writing? As far as, the emergent church, religion, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think, I was definitely pursuing that, trying to at least write something once a day, whatever it is that I was thinking about at the time. And then our emergent group here that I started in Raleigh, we brought in our first guest speaker, and he's a really cool guy. This guy Doug, he started this very progressive church here, I think 15 or 20 years ago. So he's an older guy, but very I would say as far as you could go on the progressive end of things. Being he doesn't even call himself a pastor. He calls himself a minister. He's a really smart dude. But our group and the local philosophy group kind of co-hosted him coming in to speak. And it was really interesting. He's really engaging. He opens things up and lets people question him. And I told him up front, this is a pretty diverse group. We've got some pretty hardcore atheists in this group. Most of us are some degree of agnostic. And we've told the group, if you have a question, if you think that what is being presented is just total BS, we want you to verbalize that together in the group. So he knew what he was walking into. And that's exactly what happened.
That sounds like fun.
So he, we had I think there were about 40 people there at this bar, and he did his thing for about an hour or maybe about 45 minutes. And then we did about an hour of Q&A dialogue. And after that, it just, the next couple days, I was just thinking a lot about, how someone would be interpreting this with no religious background, and that was exactly how it felt, that he was presenting this message of trying to defend and justify his own personal experiences and then project those onto everybody else, oh, well, this is what I've experienced, and you can experience it too, and you should in some way. It was very, it wasn't pushing anything on anyone, but I don't know. So the next couple of days, I was just man, I'm really trying to come at this redefining Christianity thing from this, scientifically informed, kind of progressive mindset. And this is one of those guys who's been doing this for 15 to 20 years. And I'm just not on board with 99% of what he's saying. So So I was just like, man, I just need to take a break. I need to back off for a little while. I don't know how long, but and I also think, like, kind of in line with what you were saying, Sean, about, like, focusing on there are these actual people in my life that I should be spending time with, and even the people in this group, like let me back off of trying to figure these things out, and let's actually talk through these things as a group, instead of me kind of solo trying to figure this stuff out. So that is kind of the long story of why I'm not writing about theology and philosophy for the time being.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons. I've tried to write, on the AxPx.com. I've written a few things, but man, I can't imagine trying to, write every day just the stuff that pops in my head. It just seems, and number one, just because how busy I am, I just don't have the time. But it does seem kind of like a never-ending circle of just, like a dog chasing his tail.
Yeah.
With trying to figure these things out, and it seems more healthy to just kind of, I guess, talk to other people, and if they're willing to talk and enjoy enjoy family, and we don't have to have it all figured out. And I think that's one of the things that I've always kind of, Joey, you and I have always said, this podcast isn't about solving anything. This podcast is about just gathering as many conversations as we can, just because I think there's a lot more people out there like us, whether or not they care to admit it. I think that, most people are, like I said, trying to get to a destination, right? So all these atheists, they're at a destination. There's no God, period, and they're going to go for it and try to spread their message. A lot of people say there is a God, so they're going for spreading their message. And then meanwhile, there's kind of a lot of people in the middle that are just, either don't care or, trying to figure stuff out for themselves. So I don't know where I'm going with that. It's kind of going. But do you feel like, when you said you're not going to write for that blog, do you feel like a weight's been lifted as far as that goes?
Yeah, and I think, I'm currently working on my business degree, and I've run my own business in the past, and I'm always thinking in that mode. And so from a blogging perspective, like, I've already talked to a couple people about self-publishing a book and, like, trying to do some of that stuff. Like, I'm always thinking of those type things. So with the blogging, I was definitely trying to do it in such a way, maybe I'll come back around to it soon. I don't even know, but doing it in such a way where I could become somebody on the spectrum of progressive religious people. Like, hey, I want to build my package. That's the right word.
Your brand.
Exactly. Like, create my brand. Here's what I want to present to the world, and here's my message. But I don't know. Maybe it's just not the right time for me to be doing that.
So you started up another kind of blog about like fitness and health, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of the thing that you're focusing most on right now. Did you feel like, what, I need to stop? I need to stop over here with all this, philosophy and religion stuff, and really need to focus on. Do you feel like it's just you need to focus on you and your family right now?
Yeah, I think so. I'm, being healthy in the big, broad sense of that word has always been something important to me, but I feel like I've just kind of slacked off for the last 10 years and just not really cared about it. But yeah, that's definitely part of it. And I've got an awesome wife who's been running a few miles a day for the past like 5 years, and so I'm constantly, constantly, she's not annoying about it, but just randomly like, hey, so you gonna go do something? And I think that and just climbing up some stairs, realizing, wow, this is painful, and I am over 30 now, and I need to do something.
Yeah.
So
I feel like just in my job and everything, and just even since like the past few years, I was really like, I think 3 years ago, I was me and my wife had really kicked it in gear, and we had both dropped like 30 pounds, and I was running and exercising every day, and it's almost like once I started with all the skepticism stuff, and work was ramping up, I really just, that was like the one thing I just cut out right away. I was like, oh, forget it, I don't have time.
yeah,
and then the way stress can be, with all this stuff, stress has an impact on your body, and it does cause you to just eat like shit, grab fast food whenever you can. It was almost like that would make me feel better for a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would be like really crazy busy at work and just be like, I'm gonna go to, I don't know, Taco Bell and grab myself some crappy tacos, and then I'd take a bite and be like, oh yeah, I'd feel better, and then like an hour later, depression slips in.
Yeah.
So it's like an endless cycle. What are you what are you doing do you have like a kind of a fitness plan? Are you adopting any one type of healthy living? Like my wife is talking to like vegan stuff lately.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, I didn't want to become a vegan, but I stopped eating meat. So I learned as much as I could from a vegan perspective, because I was kind of thinking like there's all these myths that are out there that people think, well, where are you going to get your protein? And that's just thrown out all the time. And
Yeah.
so I was kind of looking at the vegan perspective just to say, like, how can I get the nutrition that I need from fruits and vegetables and potatoes and without meat, and then I can add eggs or whatever to that, but I'm not gonna be putting myself in this scary place, because people do go vegetarian or vegan and then they just eat crap food, like substitute food for whatever they loved as a carnivore. So that's something that has definitely been a huge part of my life, even for the past couple of years. And now over the past few days, trying to, I think, add to a lot of that and even tweak a lot of the nutrition side of it, but then add the fitness side. And I wrote about this, I don't remember what, a couple days ago or something, but I really don't want, what I'm trying to avoid is making some huge drastic change that's going to last like a week or a month or even 6 months. Like, I want to find a healthy, I guess balance is the right word, like something that I can add onto my life that will be sustainable and that I'll stick with it until I keel over, whenever that is.
Yeah, I think that's been the issue my wife and I have faced. Like, we watched a documentary and about juicing, and we're like, we're buying a juicer. And we bought a juicer, and they're like, yeah, you should do a 3-day juice fast, or even a 9-day juice fast. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And day 2, I was like, I need myself a steak.
And I think, and we did the same thing. It was that Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead documentary.
Yeah.
And everyone I know who's watched it went out and bought a juicer immediately after they watched it. Like, I know at least 15 couples that did the same thing. So we did it and we tried it. And I think if I was obese, then I would totally consider something like that and some more extreme kind of thing. But, I just recently went to the doctor and I hadn't been in like a year. And I went in and I was like, hey, my wife was worried that I've gained some weight and that I should come talk to you. And the dude like started laughing at me, and he's like, you're still under the average weight for your height. Like, so it's not like I'm super overweight and I have a huge problem, but it's just,
you just don't want to buy the next size up in your jeans, man. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. Which I have done that. I just tried. Yeah. I've had this pair of Dickies shorts for like 15 years that I've been wearing every summer for 15 years, and now I can't put them on. And it made me, like, I got a little teary-eyed because they're my favorite shorts ever.
Yeah, I've been there. No, I remember awesome. I went to the on my 30th birthday. My wife was like, you're 30 now, so you should probably think about going to the doctor to make sure you're all okay.
Yeah.
So I went to the doctor, and he looked at me and he was like, "Why are you here?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. I'm 30." He's like, "Yeah, you're 30." He's like, "Are you in any pain?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Are you overweight?" He's like, "You're obviously not overweight." I'm like, "Well, no." He's like, "Well," he looked at me and he was like, "You're fine. Go home."
Yeah.
But yeah, there's this kind of thought, like, once you hit 30, it's like, oh man, it's all downhill. That's it. Yeah. It's 30. I'm a grown up now.
Yeah.
Watch out.
So, Joey, you've been trying to get a little healthier. What's been your, trajectory?
Yeah, I get tired of people say, "So what diet are you on?" And I go, you know what? Honestly, I just take the T off it, and I say, I just try not to die, man. That's basically my new philosophy. There's no such thing as diet, man. It's what you eat or what you don't eat, man. So,
right.
I've been really focusing this time because about a year and a half ago, and I was telling this to Rob. I think I joined onto his blog and kind of told him this, but I did P90X, that popular workout program, and seriously, it works. But of course, you're working out 6 times a week, really hardcore, and then you find a coach that really knows the nutrition, and you're eating like 50% of your calories are protein, 30% are carb, 20%. Within like 6 months, I dropped like 40 pounds or something, and I body weight was like, my body fat was like 8%. It was ridiculous. But what happens that I was telling Rob is that you become unbalanced. There's some people that are like, it is a lifestyle, but that's the lifestyle I could not sustain,
right?
But it was certain to what happened is my metabolism was kicking in so hard that when you eat clean, you can't eat enough calories in a day. And I'm not a professional eater. So when you get to a certain point in a certain point of time when your metabolism is kicking up so much, I had to eat something that had like some badness to it, that's a lot of calories, like a Panda Express or something, just to get some calories on me, But once you start doing that, you start developing those old habits when you eat maybe once or twice a week at a fast food. Then next thing you know, you have Wendy's every single day at lunch.
Right.
And then next thing you know, you're having Wendy's at lunch and Rubio's for dinner, or some Mexican restaurant, and then it just becomes your diet. That's your lifestyle. And I think, like what Rob says, I'm going for the balanced support approach now. I'm not stressing about it too much. It's like, you know what? I need to make sure I'm doing my fitness, make sure I'm eating well, try to put the nutrients in my body, really concentrate on the nutrition side of it, but not beat myself up on it. If I'm going to go to a family event and they have pizza there, I'll have pizza. I just need to learn to not have 6 slices of pizza,
But it's so good, Joey.
I know.
It's so good.
And it's just like that, especially even with like drinking beer or something. And I know that was Rob's crutch too. It's like I think it's more fun in a balance. It's not completely going cold turkey and cutting everything out, because I don't know. To me, I want a quality life, and some part of the social being of having good food. No one wants to sit around and just eat a bunch of kale, you know? Like, I mean, there's some people that do that, but most people I know don't sit around they don't order a batch of kale instead of a batch, a pizza. So, anyways, I like to try to find balance, and that's what I'm doing right now. And actually, I feel great, man. Honestly, I'm not like worried about all this protein intake and everything. I work out maybe 4 or 5 times a week right now. My friend has this like replacement shakes right now that I actually really enjoy, and it's not like I feel like I'm on a diet, but it's called Herbalife, and they've been good. I enjoyed those shakes, and then just eat a sensible lunch, like a turkey burger or something like that. But it's been going good, man.
Cool, man. I know that I texted you, Joey, the other day that the past 2 weeks I've gained. I lost like 8 pounds, and then I gained them back the past 2 weeks because of my job. But it is. I mean, it's balancing your life out. My problem is when I get kind of stressed out and I just want to eat just as crappy as I can for some reason. It's kind of a mental thing. And even then when you get home, it's like, have a couple beers to kind of, after the kids go to bed, to kind of just take it down a notch, because I'm going from 5 in the morning until about 8 at night. I'm just going. And, but yeah, it's trying to get a healthier balance. Like, maybe tonight I don't need a beer, maybe instead of drinking a beer, I should go, punch a punching bag, or you know what I mean, get on the elliptical and just run it out, or something like that. So, but yeah,
I think I don't know, a big thing for me, well, 2 things is like the time factor, and then the money factor, and just you can even doing a juice diet, like you can spend a couple $1,000s and then over a few weeks if you're trying to do that every day, and then just if it might sound bad, but if something isn't convenient, then I bet the percentage likelihood of you actually committing to it and keeping with it is just not going to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I'm not, this was something that came out in my therapy. Like, I'm the type of person like that when I am interested in something, like I go balls to the wall, like I go 150%, and then if it's not something that I should be doing, like it's gonna fade out pretty quickly, and so I have to stop myself from being like, all right, let's chunk all the food in the house and let's go to the grocery store, and I'm gonna go join a new gym and like get some new shoes. Like I don't know, it was 5 or 6 years ago that I was like, I'm going to run a marathon. And I went out. I'd never done anything like that in my life. I was like, I'm going to do it. And I went out and spent like $200 on these really nice shoes to run, and bought all these clothes, and, sold or chunked all our food and bought new food. And I think I ran like a week. And then it's like, now I have these $200 pair of shoes. What the hell am I going to do with this? I still have the shoes too.
They're still in the box.
They look great.
Yes.
So ridiculous.
I'm with you on that.
That's funny.
Yeah, I have the same kind of personality. If I'm going to do something, I'm an all or nothing guy, and that's why it's dangerous when you get into like it's the slippery slope when you start learning, even with theology stuff, or learning about the history of religion or Christianity or anything. Once you learn something, you can't unlearn it, But then I was talking to this to Sean the other day. I was like, you know what? I think really that gets us going about this is actually, I learned this from Lawrence Krauss the other night, and Richard Dawkins. They actually said this about why they love science so much, and they love finding out something they thought was right being completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I started really thinking about it. That just made them really want to learn more about what they were searching for, and I started thinking about it in our own lives. Like we had a worldview, we had an idea of what we thought was the truth, and then we actually tried to learn for ourselves or study, and and find out there's some conflicting ideologies there. And we had to figure out, okay, what is the truth? But that was so intriguing to us. It's like, wow, why isn't anyone talking about this?
Yeah.
Why aren't our pastors telling us about this stuff? They say that all these historians and biblical scholars are saying that they teach this in seminary, but they don't say this to their congregation. And you're like, you feel like, are they keeping this because they don't think we can handle it? And why don't they think we, and then you start getting that mentality and stuff. Like there's this secret knowledge that you're not a part of. And then you're wondering are they just lying? Are they scared, like you said, Rob, that they're going to, now they know the truth? Because I know a lot of friends that have gone to seminary and become atheists after it. But what they do, they'll become, get into church and they have this degree that they spent, all this money to get this degree, and they're supposed to be a pastor, and they don't even believe anymore. But the problem is what are they going to do with this degree? I had friends even have a problem like that, stop believing or whatever, and try to get a regular job like at a bar, and they saw that it was something like Azusa Pacific Seminary or something like that, and they were like, this is a bar, right? Like. And they weren't gonna. They kind of were hesitant to give them a job because that they thought they were going to just be this judgmental like pastor guy that comes in and trying to change their whole staff or something like that. But
when I got I'm just about to hit the year mark on the job that the job I got about a year ago. But when I applied for the job, which my motivation to do so was pretty low at the time, but I had to have about a 30-minute conversation with the lady who's now my manager, just trying to like explain that whole backstory and why, I haven't had like a regular job and I don't have like a regular degree or anything. It's so crazy like that. I feel like that they should tell people up front, like, like this is probably what's going to happen. Most of you are going to walk away from this. Like either you're going to not become, or you're not going to stick with your Christian stuff, or you're at least going to get out of ministry. And that the statistics are something like over 50% of people who graduate from seminary. Wow. So I wish that they would tell people that up front. And also tell them, like, hey, this degree that you have and this experience you have in ministry doesn't mean anything to anyone in the real world. They just don't care.
Right. Yeah. Well, I look at just my college, and I went to a couple smaller colleges and got my bachelor's of arts in electronic media, and half those people didn't stick with whatever their major was. You know what I mean? So, I went to school for like video production and radio. Well, when I got out of school, radio was collapsing. Clear Channel had bought up all these radio stations and were farming out, the cheapest disc jockeys they could, and there wasn't a job market in radio. And then for video production, I just did not want to move out to LA or New York. That just wasn't in the cards. I just didn't want to be eaten up by that machine. So, and of course, I try to find all these smaller, guys who have local, companies, but it's them and an intern, Yeah. So it's like you look at this just in regular college, no one really sticks to exactly what they went to school for. And so then I look at all these people going to like a seminary and a Christian college, like my wife went to, Rhema Bible Institute. But she doesn't have a degree, a real life degree. Like I say real life, it definitely helped her. Like she's glad she went there, but it doesn't, there's no credits. You know what I mean? There's no degree there if you're looking for a normal job. So they don't really mention that at all during a seminary, huh?
No, I know that for a fact. And I think we're going to probably have a future podcast. Didn't you say someone from seminary, Sean?
Yeah, it's definitely an idea to get either one or two people on who've been through a school like that and have lost their faith. And it's like, what do you do? What did you do? So
yeah,
you'd think there would be kind of like a dual, degree you can get. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, but crazy. All right. Well, let's take another musical break here, and then we'll come back and I want to try to blend a couple things together, and we'll chat about that, and call it a day. But this is Mike Hale again. This is from his newest album. I say newest, new-ish. Came out in 2009. The album's called Lives Like Mine, and this is the title track off the album. So this is Mike Hale with Lives Like Mine on the AxPx podcast.
What are you thinking over? What evil you employ? So quick to form opinions, speaking in storm and noise, running over in circles, screaming until we're heard. This hopeless and reckless behavior, still dancing to old words. What do you say when you realize you're not necessary, and your world starts caving in? It doesn't make the night less cold in this lonely condition. You fold, you crumble, withdraw deeper inside. Disposable lives like mine. Whoa. Whoa. What are you contemplating? The sound of your foolish disguise, cursing the absence of laughter, failure in your eyes. What do you say when you realize you're not necessary, and your world starts caving in? It doesn't make the night less cold in this lonely condition. You fold, you crumble, withdraw deeper inside. Disposable lives like mine. Whoa. Whoa. What do you say when you realize you're not necessary? You fold, you crumble, withdraw deeper inside. Disposable lives like mine.
That was Mike Hale with the song Lives Like Mine. It's the title track off his newest album of the same name. It's out on Suburban Home Records. You can just Google Mike Hale and Lives Like Mine. I think you'll be taken to his Bandcamp, or the Suburban Home Records Bandcamp, and you can grab that there. So, good stuff. I like it a lot. A happy accident when I was browsing the record store. Speaking of records, my wife just brought home like 3 huge boxes full of records from one of. She sells new homes, and one of the buyers, people that had bought, they were like, moving into the new house, and they're like, we have these boxes of records. Do you know anybody? And she was like, my husband. So I'm excited to go through those but the ones that were all compacted together in the boxes, those are all awesome. So I got some Prince and some Bruce Springsteen.
Sweet.
So
it's awesome, man.
I'm pretty excited. Pretty excited
Score.
about that. Some Journey, I think.
Oh, watch out.
Anyway, records are fun. They had Beatles. The Beatles, Let It Be, but the thing was all scratched to hell. I got pretty depressed. I was like, damn it. That's one that I want. Well, it's one that I want. It's so expensive, if you find a decent copy of that.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe I can sell it even though it's crap.
Maybe.
But hey, it's free, so you can't look, it's awesome. It's like, I got all these free records, so I'm not going to complain at all.
Exactly.
Good time. So all of you should collect records because it's fun. I don't know.
Agreed.
My wife thinks I'm crazy. But I keep telling her, I'm like, there's a fidelity difference. They sound better. And she just looks at me like I'm crazy. So, I don't know. To each their own. So, what I want to do, guys, is in this last little segment here, is I want to kind of see, if there's a way, blending, like, our quote-unquote faith journey and then kind of, we're all, like, making health goals for ourselves. And, do you guys have like plans on trying to blend those two? Or are you trying to do one or the other? Can there be a balance in balancing, health and, all these, deeper questions that we have in our lives? Rob, are you juggling that in some way?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I think is one of the long-term kind of positive things that will stick with you forever going through therapy is that you very quickly, like, you learn what your triggers are toward, like, I have this negative tendency to feel this when this happens. Right. And so you learn much better, like, how to set boundaries for yourself and how to just calm yourself down, take a breath, like step back from the situation, all these things that, I wish I would have known when I was 10 years old. But I think, with anything, it's like just being able to step back and put a little bit of distance between yourself and your situation, and not overreact and not freak out about ridiculous things, and not I could easily through this process the last couple weeks, I could easily latch back on to the new atheism thing. I could easily shut down the group that I started and join some other like atheist group in the city, because there's a few of them that are pretty big, and I could go down all those paths, but when I just calm down and I'm like, what's really going on here? I'm like, well, this isn't really that big a deal. Like, it's, I can just take a minute, take a couple of days, take a couple of weeks, take however long it takes. Yeah. And, not think that I'm missing out on something because I'm not reading this or not commenting on this blog or I'm not listening to this podcast, not yours, but like, not thinking like, oh, my life is going to be worse if I don't do fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's just not true. Like, there are all kinds of things that I can focus on and spend my time doing that will bring me fulfillment and make me happy. So, it's just, that's a big, like we kind of have all these phrases in my house that we say all the time, and I'm sure my kids are totally annoyed by them by now, but like one of them is like, take a breath. Just take a goddamn breath. Like, just calm down. Like, step back and, okay, this isn't a big deal.
Well, I didn't ask you, Rob. Are your parents Christians? Do you have a good relationship with them?
They are my mom until about a year ago, I think. She had started her own church, and she was a pastor, but they had to shut that down. And then my dad has been a worship leader for a long time. So they were kind of doing that for a few years. And I think because of financial issues, they had to quit doing that. But yeah, they're still very much in the charismatic world.
What are their reactions to your journey you've been on? Is that I ask because I'm in kind of the boat. My parents are very, very religious, and they're always worried about me, and my soul, and they kind of want me to figure it out. You know what I mean? Do you feel like a stress from them, or are they very open to kind of your personal journey?
When I first quit working for the church like 3 years ago, and kind of spilled my guts to my parents, my mom, her reaction was, "Oh, you're just angry with God." Right. And so that was really one of the last actual conversations I've had with them about religion or anything else. Like we'll randomly send each other emails, but for the most part, we just don't talk about it. Yeah, because it's such a touchy thing for them, and it has been for me. I don't think it would be so much now, but yeah. So we really that is the approach, is just to not talk about it.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Because that's definitely, like, that subject is, can be a cause of some stressful conversations or emails, or, just gets exhausting.
Yeah, I think the more difficult thing than even me with my parents has been, like, my kids with my parents, and they're, kind of at that age, like they're 12 and 13, where they're not little kids anymore.
Right.
Like they're, they really have their own kind of thing, and their own personalities. I mean, not that younger kids don't, but kind of that pivotal age where they're making their own decisions. We give them a lot more freedom than we ever have, and which is also a lot more responsibility and all of that. And not being in that environment since before they were that age. So, being out of the church for 3 years, they don't remember a lot of that, and they just haven't been around it. So even like a 5-minute conversation with my parents, they're so confused, and like, what are they talking about? I don't understand what grandma means when she said that that's a sin. Like all the stuff that, we grew up with, and it's just, common lingo. They just have no context for it. They're so confused by everything they say.
Yeah, well, I had a similar situation yesterday when I was watching the special features to the Bible History Channel Blu-ray, and they were showing the scene where they were trying to film, the crucifixion, and then my daughter walked in the room, and all of a sudden she has all these questions on what's that man doing, or why, and she kind of been through church with they go to church every now and then, so they have an understanding of who Jesus was, but her asking me like, well, why did they crucify him? And I'm like, I can't even, this is the hardest thing for me to answer right now, because it's like, she's 7, so I was like, well, yeah, well, she doesn't understand, like, there's the old covenant, right? So basically this show was showing that there was an old covenant, and that Jesus, instead of, I was trying to explain, like, long time ago, they used to have to sacrifice animals. She's like, her eyes, like, she kind of looks like, what? And I'm like, well, if you were bad, you had to kill an animal. And then I'm like, and so then Jesus is God's son, and Jesus, it's just, this was actually the reason why I started to actually go on my journey of just abandoning what I'd been taught and try to figure it out for myself. Because, like, how the hell am I going to explain this stuff to my kids, right? And I thought that 3 years ago. And then here I am at a moment where my daughter has a question, and then if I was in a certain place like I was, 4 years ago, I would give the generic, well, he died for our sins, and da-da-da-da, and now he's with God. And, but a kid seeing a guy on a cross all bloody, it just doesn't compute for them why,
Right.
And, it was a very surreal moment. And, this is kind of the moment that I had been dreading happened, where I have to try to explain this. And after a while, she just kind of rolled her eyes and she went, whatever. And she walked in the other room. So, but
awesome,
the thing is, like, the problem is there's so much context, right, to the actual story of why Jesus would die on a cross, and it's like when you start kind of picking it apart, it's almost you have to go back here and then you have to go back here, and it's more complicated, I think, than I ever thought it would be to try to explain that, I guess, because most of the time you just go to generic, a generic statement, and then that's it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times what I feel like I do with my kids is, like, they'll say something or ask a question, and I know, like, that it's just total BS. Like, they're just making it up, or like it's a really complicated question. And so I just feel like a lot of times I'm like, do you really want an answer to that question? Because this is going to take about an hour. Right. And then they're like,
yeah.
Go play video games.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
So Joey, you need to hurry up and have kids so you can, we can mentor you. Okay.
Shoot, man, I'll live through you vicariously. Come on now.
So, I think, it definitely is a balance. And I feel like just what I said about, just yesterday, just kind of after 2 weeks of just not focusing on my whole upside down journey, right? I had and then I ate like really awesome yesterday, and I felt like I was more clear, and those are the kind of days that I want. So I'm trying to find the balance for myself. Like this morning I was reading, I have this New Testament, but it was basically retranslated. It's very fascinating. They use the actual Greek words and Hebrew words that would have been used at the time. So instead of Jesus, it's Yeshua, stuff like that, and it's very fascinating. So I just started, and they start with the first book of this New Testament is Mark. So they start with the oldest Gospels and move on through. So I started reading that this morning, but just reading it, not really trying to figure anything out, and it was very cool. And that, revisiting, jumping into something like that after kind of a week to 2 week hiatus was cool. So I think I'm going to try to balance out my life like that. And then I worked out for the first time yesterday in probably a year. Wow. For 20 minutes. But today I feel like I worked out. I ran a marathon. Yeah. I feel useless today.
Right.
But just trying to, for myself, I feel like if I get in these healthier habits, I think I'm going to have better clarity with the stuff I'm reading. So that's kind of my balance and my goal. And not be in a hurry to have this stuff figured out. And when my kids ask a question like that, I need to know that I'm not going to have all the answers right now. And I need to be able to tell my kids, you know what, I don't know 100%, but here's what some people believe. And when you get older, if you have more questions, we'll continue the conversation. I need to kind of approach things like that. And that's where my wife and I have to kind of, talk about how we're going to answer these questions. And she has, I've just read more things. She has her beliefs and everything like that. But I think, ultimately it's once the kids get old enough to figure things out, I'm hoping that they go on their own journeys at a young age, as opposed to like me. I started my journey 3 years ago on actually caring about, knowing what I believe, So, Joey, how about you, man? How are you going to balance your faith, whatever journey, with kind of, your health goals and stuff like that?
It's the popular word, man. Just balance.
Yeah.
Not to get so OCD. I get really OCD on everything. So if it's becoming like, on religion or Christianity. I just want to like focus on that and read everything, and just that's all I do, and that's all I think about 24/7. I watched probably every video on YouTube that exists on Christianity from every scholar, from all. Like, I'm serious. That's what I do, and I get crazy about that. And I need to, and that's the same with working out. You know, I'll become a P90X coach. I'll, you know, get 8% body fat, and I'll be super ripped and crazy shredded and be all like crazy, and then I'll just flatline. You know, I get exhausted, and I need to. That's like what I'm working with in myself, is just to find balance, enjoy life more. You know, enjoy the moment that we have, enjoy family, and you know, and not, like you said, don't feel like I have to understand everything and figure it all out by a deadline. There's no deadlines. You know, if the day, you know, if I die tomorrow, I'm gonna know is what I know. You know, and that's how it's gonna do. And I just want to live an honest and truthful life and be good to people. So
there you go. But
I just want to say something about just real quick about. You know, my big thing for a long time was reading, kind of like what you're saying about watching videos, like, and, you know, I had probably a couple thousand philosophy and theology books. Like, we had stacks of books, like, throughout our house at one point, because we didn't have enough bookshelves, like, and I used to, this has been a couple of years now, but, like, I would stay up till like 4 a.m. because I had to read something and I had to understand something. And I think whatever clicked for me to realize that was a problem was any time that I thought I have to do this or I need to do this, then it was a very clear indicator to me, like, hey, wait a minute, what is compelling you to think that you have to read this book? Like, why do you feel this obligation to understand Jack Caputo's take on ethics? Like, why is that so important to you? Why is this such a big deal? And so now I'm like, if I ever feel like, oh man, I got to read this, I got to know, I got to understand it, blah, blah, like immediately I'm like, wait a minute, like I don't need any of this. Like, if I want to read it, that's great. And if I feel like it's going to help me in some way, that's awesome. But other than that, it's some weird, like, compulsion. So, and maybe it is like a form of OCD. Like, I have to do this. And changing that has literally changed my life. Like, I've sold so many books. I don't really read that much, honestly, anymore. Like, I randomly just pick up a book and I'm like, okay, I'll read a few pages. But yeah, it's been so much better just to not have that as like the security blanket for me to keep from dealing with my life.
Rob, do you think that it was kind of the way that we were raised and kind of the fear of hell, right? You know, I need to get this all figured out because just in case, what if I'm wrong and I am going to hell?
Yeah, I think it was like there's, I mean, even like a more crap. What word am I looking for? Even like in the here and now, like even maybe an idolization of knowledge. Like, like I've got to know this, or I'm a bad Christian, or I'm a bad atheist, or I'm not up to par with this group of people. Somebody said a name that I don't recognize, and like, oh, I got to go read that person's 15 books, and then I can have that conversation. Yeah. It's so ridiculous.
It's a never-ending circle. And I think it's healthy to step back and get balance. And I think we're all very similar personalities, so it can be hard for us, I think. So I'm actually thinking about looking into some therapy. I don't know, but it's been suggested by a couple people saying, you should just give it a try. So
I am a fan.
Well, the problem sometimes, Sean, I don't know about you, Rob, like, was your therapist a religious therapist? Like, if you don't want to answer, you don't have to, but like, it's really hard to find, like, maybe even like a non-Christian. because they always approach it a certain way, you know, their philosophy of how they're going to give people advice or how to perform therapy on someone. Because I know that there are some people that have gone to therapy and they're like, it's all Christ-centered. So, you know, you need to dive into the Bible and, you know, and it's like, did you have a hard time finding just like more of like a just straightforward therapist and they didn't have like some kind of other agenda?
Yeah, I mean, that was I specifically sought out someone who was not necessarily wasn't a Christian, but wasn't approaching therapy from that kind of like the gospel is everything, whatever that means. And, you know, everything goes back to sin and repentance. And I just didn't want any of that. So yeah, it was pretty hard to find somebody, but I thankfully found someone who was awesome. And
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to find someone who pins everything on that one time you stole an Ice Cube CD from Musicland.
Yeah, I could just already see the call right now. Sean's like, man, dude, I'm a new atheist. I can see it, like, I'm done with this. Oh, man, I'm going hitch style. Hitch slap.
My therapist told me that I needed to repent for stealing The Predator.
Oh, God. See, I don't
CD.
even...
Not that I ever did. I didn't.
I don't even... I don't think that kind of thing should distort the good reputation of therapy.
Yeah.
Like, I think like it just doesn't, I mean, even like to be able to be a part of the American Psychological Association, you have to say, you know, I support the full inclusion of LGBTQ people.
Okay.
And it's like, well, that's not the majority of Christian counselors. So like, to even be in that world, like you've had to have a certain type of education and experience, and you have to approach things from a certain way.
Right. So I need to look for credentials, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I
would find a person who has a master's in social work. That's what I would look for.
Perfect. All right. Now that we've all realized that I need to go to therapy, it's time to...
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, there is a stigma to it that you're like, well, I don't need therapy, you know, but I'm there's a few people I've talked to that have actually, I didn't know they had gone through at least therapy, and they've given it the thumbs up. So, so cool. All right. So anyway, so we spent an hour and a half for me to decide that. And
we're making progress, Sean.
Yeah,
we're making progress.
So
it's a breakthrough today.
Well, you know, I hope people can get something out of today's podcast. I kind of like doing these just go through and talk shows every now and then. And we do have some more focus shows coming up in the future, but I think these kind of shows are good to just so you know people can understand where we're coming from, I guess. So, Rob, where can people find you online?
I recently changed my Twitter handle to Coffee or Suicide, which is actually I had my old pastor texted me yesterday, and he was like, "What the hell is your Twitter handle?" But it actually comes from Albert Camus, said, "The only philosophical question is, should I kill myself or drink a cup of coffee?" Which is an interesting thing to think about, but... Yeah. So
that's really depressing for me since I don't like coffee.
Oh man.
Really? That's hilarious. So there's that. I still have my blog, robertanthonydavis.com, but I haven't been updating it. And I'm a contributor on the Emergent Village blog, but I haven't been doing that either. So yeah, follow me on Twitter.
Awesome. Joey, where can people find you online?
My name, Joey Avalos. I actually, made some big steps. I'm full of myself now. I actually got joeyavalos.com.
Ooh.
But it's not fully developed yet. I'm actually an aspiring writer myself, so just developed that. It's in the process. But yeah, Twitter, Joey Avalos, or Facebook, Joey Avalos.
Awesome. And you can find me and the show on Facebook, the AxPx, also on Twitter, the AxPx, and of course the AxPx.com. So go there and like the Facebook site, and I would love it if everyone would go to iTunes and leave us a little, 5-star review or something. I don't know. And drop us a line. I would definitely love to hear from the listeners. The best place to do that is probably on Facebook, facebook.com/theAxPx. Like us there, and join the conversation. And if there's anything that's on your mind, I would love to hear, what you're going through, what you're thinking. I know that through the last show, there's I've made a couple acquaintances online that I'd like to talk to them further, and so each show is kind of a baby step. And definitely, I want to get more people, just regular people like us, involved on conversations, and I think that's going to kind of make the show even more of a dialogue. So there you go. Rob, thanks, man, for chatting with us.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's awesome.
The show may not be as epic as the Lost show. I was thinking of that Tenacious D song, Tribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this isn't the greatest podcast in the world. This is just a tribute. So thanks, man, for talking to us. I'm sure we'll be chatting more as things progress in the future. We'll definitely be chatting it up on Facebook and stuff.
Right on.
And thanks, everyone, for listening today. We'll be back next week. I'm not entirely sure what the show is going to be. I'm trying to get Mike Herrera available for just to talk to him about his career and where his faith is or isn't. And I know we'll be talking to an LGBTQ affirming church in Southern California. I'm going to be talking to a few congregation members and the pastors. So look forward to that in the next couple weeks. And of course, the show as always brought to you by Charming Beard Coffee. Grab yourself a bag of coffee from charmingbeard.com and use the code AXPX and get yourself 10% off your order. All right. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.